Several of y'all know me, some of y'all don't. My name's Alan Hall. I'm the nursery manager here at Peninsula Hardwood Mulch. I've been here about 3 years now. Been a Virginia certified nurseryman since the program started back in, I think it was 78, something like that. So I've been in horticulture a little while. I've done production, done retailing, and I've been a landscape contractor for nearly 25 years. So I've been exposed to all different kinds of the parts of the business. And as a contractor and also as a production manager, I've done lots of pruning. We do it commercially on the job, 8 hours a day, all week long, this time of year, for months at a time. So pruning is nothing new to me. So it's one of my favorite subjects because so many people do it poorly. And so I'm very pleased with the opportunity to show people how to do a better job. And doing a better job starts with understanding what you're pruning, the plants themselves. So if y'all have the handout, I'm going to kind of, as much as possible, go through the handout kind of the way it is, and if I get off track, y'all can throw something at me or whatever. But we're going to start with the basic tools. And tools are what we need in order to accomplish our goal. And the first and most useful tool is a pair of hand pruners. And there's actually 3 different styles of hand pruners that you can buy. This one is called a bypass pruner because when you close the blades go by past each other. Okay, this is the best kind of pruner. It makes the cleanest cut. Okay, there is also an anvil pruner, which looks kind of like this up here. It has a flat bar and the top blade comes down on it. And there's usually a little groove in it for the blade in order to cut all the way through. I don't recommend these. They have a tendency, particularly if that trough gets gummed up with a little bit of sap or debris, it tends to tear the branches a lot on the bottom side. So I really don't like anvil pruners, and I discourage people from buying that. And then the other kind of pruner is a ratchet pruner. And this one's still in the pack, but a ratchet pruner has a little mechanism here in between the handles that clicks and allows you to reopen and click, which gains torque so that you don't have to squeeze so hard. So people with arthritis or something like that, this is a good tool for them. You can actually take a dowel rod and cut through a dowel rod, which is dried wood, pretty easily with one of these kind of tools. But they're not as fast as your normal pruner. Normal pruner, you're making one cut here, you're doing click, 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 click to get through a piece of wood. So, but it is a good tool. And this is a fairly decent. One thing I strongly advocate to people is sheaths. Leather sheath, it protects the tool. It's very handy. Particularly when you're working, you put it right on you. Now your hands are free. If you have to change, you have to go up and down a ladder, change from one tool to another. You don't have to worry about where did I put my tool? Did it fall down in the mud or in the pond that's next to where I'm pruning? I've had that happen before. One of my guys lost it and fished for hours and never found it. So pruning shears are excellent. We have a couple different styles, this one here and then this one that's a little taller. I like this one better because it hangs a little lower, which is a more natural place for your arm. The other one sets up a little higher, so you have to reach a little higher when you get it. But pruning tools are good. Shears are good. We have saws. There's a couple different kinds of saws. This is a folding saw. Obviously you saw the blade retract, so it folds up to keep the blade safe. You can stick that in your pocket. You can also have a separate sheath and it will go in your sheath as well also. Pruning tools are good. Hand shears cut about a 1/2 inch wood. Okay, if you get bigger than that, then you can go to lopping shears, which give you 1, a handle for leverage, and 2, this will take 3/4 of an inch to an inch wood that you can cut through. Okay, if you get much bigger than that, that's when you graduate to the saws. Or if you're in peculiar places where it's hard to get in with a locker and you have a lot of crotches in the tree, sometimes then you got to get a saw in there and do a little cutting. Now, one thing about this saw, and there are different kinds of blades on the market. This one is called full of sawdust. This one is a razor tooth blade, and basically it's got cutting edges on all sides. This cuts through wood like butter. Okay, the only downside to this type of saw is it's almost impossible to sharpen. So once it gets dull, I usually throw them away and buy a new one. So sharpening is a good thing for most tools. For bigger cutting, you can have a little bit bigger saw. Now, a little bit bigger saw also has a thicker blade than this one does. Most of the time, your blades have a little bit of an extra hook on the end of it to keep you from pulling all the way out of a cut. The problem with these blades is they're a little thinner and the tips have a tendency to get broke because of it. Okay, Other than that, you never notice. I mean, it still works. Just like with a hand pruner, sheath is a valuable thing. You got this in a toolbox somewhere laying by itself, you go to grab it, you get bit 50% of the time. You know, you end up grabbing something or you pull it and, you know, they cut very easily. It's a razor tooth saw, it's going to cut any direction you're pushing or pulling, or if you drag your hand across it, you're coming out there with, you know, wishing you hadn't. Saw is protected, protects you, so sheaths are a good thing. Now, I don't stock sheaths for saw, but I can get them for you, and I have special order for people all the time, so don't have a bit of problem with that. Before I get to my least favorite tool, I want to get to probably one of the best new introductions on the market. This little thing here is a sharpening tool. Okay, and it's got 3 sides actually that you can sharpen with, and this is the best sharpening tool I have found on the market in all the years. And it's really very simple. Now, on a pruning tool, you have one side of the blade that you sharpen, the other side is flat. So you would only basically just take a few strokes, and this tool will have your blade pretty sharp. And then sometimes I'll take one on the back side just to eliminate burrs if you happen to have any burrs. Okay, but sharp tools cut cleaner and are much better. But for $10, I mean, this will fit in your pocket, goes pretty much anywhere, and it sharpens on the spot for you. Unless you're really as dull as this one, you would have to take a few more strokes. And before I get to that one more thing about tools. Quality counts. You can go to the store, you can buy a cheap tool, and you'll smile at the counter. And then when you get home and use the tool and it breaks in your hand, you'll be cussing the rest of the day because now you got to make another trip back to the store. You can see the handle broke on this one. This is a knockoff. You know, it's, I don't know, $5, $10 tool, whatever it is, it wasn't worth a penny. Okay, it's junk. Doesn't stay sharp, breaks when you try to use it, if you actually try to cut something with it. So you get what you pay for. This tool here is Felco. Felco is absolutely the best on the market for pruning equipment. Felco is Swiss made. This pair of pruners here is probably over 25 years old, and as I mentioned, I've used it commercially for years and years, and I used it commercially when I was in retail. So it's got heavy duty use all along the way. And I can buy parts. I can buy the blade, I can buy any one of these nuts and bolts, springs, anything. Okay, and this particular one has a rotating handle, which the beauty of that is it reduces fatigue in your hand if you're doing a lot of pruning. Okay, now Felco is not the cheap guy. Obviously, if they're the best, they're going to cost a little more. One of these is probably $85 retail. But they make probably 15 different style pruners, left hand, right hand, different ergonomic grips, rolling handle or not. But it is the best pruner on the market. The second best pruner on the market is an American made. Comes out of California, and that is Corona. And Corona makes a wide variety of tools. This tool here is Corona, okay? This sharpener is Corona. These folding saws and this razor saw are Corona. So I don't have a bit of problem with buying Corona. It's a good company, and they stand behind their products also if you need a replacement part or something. This is a fairly new pruning shear. It's got a little bit of a new design to it, a couple of ways. One is called a dual cut pruner because it has an extra groove in it, which enables it to cut a little better when you're trying to do bigger stuff. And the spring that's normally in there is now built into the mechanism here. So the locking mechanism is right there, which I'm not sure if I like it being plastic or not. I'm afraid that may break. I don't know yet. Too early to see. But this tool is fairly versatile, left or right-handed too. So reasonably priced tool, about 37 bucks. Yeah, 37 bucks. Good company, good quality. This tool will last you a lifetime. So you get what you pay for. You might fuss at the register, but you'll smile every time you use it on the job. So good investment. Tools are an investment. Tools should last you a lifetime if you buy a good one. Example of the pruning sheaths we do have. And folding saws I do have also. Straight saws I can order. I don't stock them, but I can order them. And then, other saws that are available, there's a bow saw. And a bow saw is basically like a big bow handle with a long skinny blade on it. Now the problem with bow saws, if you don't keep them tight enough, when you're cutting through particularly bigger wood, they have a tendency to twist a little, and that makes your cut bend. So you end up with a curve in your cutter and cut away or something like that, and then you got to recut it again. That's a pain in the neck. So I don't like them as well. If I have to cut something really that big, then I might consider a chainsaw. And then chainsaw is the other type of saw. And I find that a lot of people know how to use a chainsaw. They don't know anything about pruning. So chainsaws are easier to learn than pruning is. Okay. One other saw on the market is a pole saw. And this is just one example, or one company's brand. This one is from Florian, who actually made the first ratcheting pruner. Their pruner is made out of plastic, and it's kind of cheap, but it has the best cutting edge. But this one, the overall quality is probably better. But a pruning pole saw extends up, okay? And there are different mechanisms for locking it down. This one has the screw tip, which I hate. The first Florian pole pruner that I bought, the locking mechanism was on the inside, and it has these two little rubber grommets or stoppers or whatever you will, that when you turn one way they lock, you turn the other way they release. And just one quick like that and you're set. This one here you have to tighten it down pretty hard, otherwise when you go to saw it pulls the pole out from under you. And then you got to tighten this so tight you can't get it back open when you want to change the setting again. So I don't like this so well, but their system is good. This one has a quick change for tools. So this is a saw, obviously, and this was a razor tooth. This was probably getting a little dull now because having been used commercially. I also have a lopping shears attachment like this that would go on the end of this. Okay. The trouble with loppers on a pole, it's difficult for most people to use because you have to hold the pole up there, or whatever height the limb is. You've got to hold this with one hand, and then you've got to pull the string with the other. Okay, and a lot of people have a little difficulty doing that. Now, there are also a couple different kinds of loppers, some with a single chain, and some of them that have a multi-pulley system. Now, the multi-pulley system gives you more torque, makes it easier to cut, but it also gives you more rope that you have to pull down. So you got to pull down, usually wrap up a little, and pull down the rest of the way. So a little bit more difficult, but easier to cut. But there are lots of different brands of loppers and the pole pruners, and Florian is a good one, but you don't see it on the market. I usually have to mail order. They're out of, I want to say Maine or Michigan, or not Michigan, but Massachusetts, somewhere up there in the Northeast. And then the one I've been avoiding, my favorite tool, I generally tell people to take this and throw it in the trash, lose it, hide it, whatever you want. It is the worst tool on the shelf. Okay, and that goes for electric head shears, oscillating head shears, same thing. I really despise having to use those things. And the reason is, pruning is a selective adventure. You should prune properly by selecting every branch that you cut. And when you cut with one of them, you're cutting a massive group all at one time. You're cutting leaves and branches and twigs all at the same, totally random cut. I mean, it may be placed for you, but according to the plan, it's going to be random. Because when you cut with this, you may be cutting this branch and this thing, but you're going to cut through the middle of leaves. And every leaf you cut is going to weep, and it has to be healed before the plant can rebound from it. So if you can cut the plant without cutting all those leaves, you have less heal time.